Hello everybody and welcome to another video. It is voiceover me and I'm starting a new series of learning stuff. So in this series we're going to be going through the notes for my government class. As far as I know, I don't have a huge test over it. I'm just doing it because I don't have anything to talk about specifically on voiceovers right now. So yeah, let's do it. Just a disclaimer ahead of time. These are the notes that I've taken that are required for me to take in the class, and I'm basically just reading them and explaining what they say. My political stance doesn't have anything to do with what I've written down, and I have two different teachers, and I don't know what their political stances are. So please don't be offended by anything that I say, because this is just what I'm being taught, and I am then telling it to other people. So the first thing that we have right here is my lesson 1 notes. And they're kind of to help us understand the difference between the liberal and conservative, which in the United States tend to be the Democratic and Republican parties, and then what their opinions on certain things tend to be. So I'm going to read down one side of the graph and then read down the other side of the graph so that it's not too confusing. So the way that we have it right here, I'm going to start with the liberal side first, which what we have is Democratic. However, not all Democrats believe everything that is written in this section, and not all Republicans believe everything that's written in the conservative section, and not all Republicans are conservative, and not all Democrats are liberal, etc., etc. These are just the overall generalizations, like what a lot of or most people like to do or think. So the liberal/democratic stance on abortion tends to be that we should have reproductive rights for women to choose what they want to do with their bodies, and they tend to be pro-choice. In terms of affirmative action, liberal or democratic people tend to be in favor that race should be a considered factor to ease discrimination. Liberal/democratic perspective on guns tends to be pro-gun control because of crime. And the liberal democratic opinion on crime is that it's a social issue and that we need to be looking at the underlying causes and the idea of defendants' rights. Liberal/democratic opinions about taxes, they think that taxes are okay, that they should be used to build social equality, and I have the word rich in quotes, but I'm not sure why. I think it has to do with being that the liberal people tend to think that people with more money should be taxed more and people with less money should be taxed less. But I don't know. Turning the page. Continuing with what liberal/Democrats, right? Yeah. On spending, that is government spending. They believe that it is okay, especially on social programs like welfare and healthcare. The liberal opinion on regulation is in favor of preserving the economy. I'm not sure what regulation they mean by that. I think it has to do with like regulating food and drug things, but I don't really know. The liberal opinion about the military is that they want to have a military, but they want it to just be a basic military for protection or defense, but not for going on offense. Then we have the conservative/Republican generalized opinions about all of these subjects. So the conservative/Republican mindset about abortion, they consider it to be a life issue. They consider abortion to be murder, and they tend to be pro-life, that is, pro-saving the life of the unborn child, and anti-abortion or preferring people to give their children up for adoption instead of aborting them. Conservative/Republican people's common opinion about affirmative action is that they are against. They want to have a racially blind society, and they don't want race to be a factor in anything, in things that it doesn't need to be, I guess. Conservative/Republican opinions about guns. They really rely on the Second Amendment, and they're very much pro-gun rights. The conservative/Republican opinions about crime. They want to have tougher laws and more policing. And the conservative/Republican opinion about taxes. They do not think that taxes are okay. They feel like they are a disincentive to work, which means they make people not want to work. They feel like they're a friction on the economy, and they feel like they reduce investment that could create jobs. Then the conservative/Republican opinion on government spending. They think it is not okay. They think the government should be as small as possible and spend as little as possible, except on military spending. Conservative/Republicans' opinions on regulation. They are against regulation because they feel like it puts a friction on the economy. Again, I'm not really sure what regulation of, what regulating thing that they're having an opinion on, because I only wrote regulation. And then conservative/Republican opinions on military. They think that our military should be prepared and not just complacent. They want to have a stronger military so that even if we don't actually use it to be offensive, it will be big enough to scare off other people so that we won't even have to use it to be super defensive. And that was all of Lesson 1. Alright, so we have Lesson 2 of my government notes that I've been taking. We do about 2 note sheets per week, and we've been doing it for 4 or 5 weeks. So it's going to be a medium to long series. I don't know if I'll make each note set an individual video, but I could. Lesson 2 is about non-voting and voting behavior in the U.S. My notes begin with a quote that says, "We do not have government by the majority, we have government by the majority who participate," which was said by Thomas Jefferson, who was our 3rd president. So the first part of our thing talks about the percent turnout in different kinds of elections. So in presidential elections, we have about 50% turnout. So there was a 58% turnout in 2016, which means that's what percent of the population in the United States actually goes to the voting house and votes. In a non-presidential election, we have about 33% turnout, and there are a lot of non-presidential elections. It is always higher in the federal elections versus state and local elections. There's a term we have called ballot fatigue, which is the farther down the ballot, the fewer people vote for it, whatever it is, because people prefer to vote for things that are at the top of the ballot. But that also probably is because those things might be more popular. That's just my guess, though. And then I have a statistic here that says 99,760,000 people don't vote. Over 17 million people can't vote, and we're still talking about people in the U.S., because they are either non-citizens or they are felons. I actually didn't know until I took this test. And then some reasons people don't vote are because they distrust the government, they're uninformed, they don't like the candidates, it was bad weather, they were at work, they were taking care of kids, lots of reasons, but a lot of it boils down to just that they don't care. That's what it wrote in my notes. It's not what I'm saying. And then we have what indicators make someone more or less likely to vote. So voters tend to be wealthy, educated, politically active communities, or like living in that kind of a community. And then non-voters tend to be under 35, unskilled laborers, uneducated, and in the deep south or rural areas. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that if you are in any of those categories that you are going to be a voter or non-voter. It just means that's the demographic that we tend to see it in. So what demographics tend to vote Republican, or Democratic. And what they said here is the majority of Americans are politically moderate, which is like undecided, or they have some opinions that could be considered liberal and some opinions that could be considered conservative. And so they aren't necessarily one or the other. The lower income families or people tend to be more democratic, and the higher income people tend to be about 50-50. In terms of age, younger people tend to be Democratic, and then older people become more Republican or still kind of 50-50. In terms of education, people with lower education tend to be more Republican, and higher education tend to be more Democratic. Women tend to be more Democratic, and men tend to be more Republican. People who are white tend to be more Republican, whereas people who are Black, Hispanic, or Asian tend to be more Democratic. White men make up the most Republicans, and Black women are the most Democratic voters. The less religious people tend to vote more democratically. Catholic people and Christian people are more Republican. And these are all statistics I'm taking from graphs that we had in our notes. So I'm not sure exactly when they were, when the surveys were done, but I'm assuming it was fairly recently. So the South and the Great Plains areas tend to be more Republican. The coasts area tend to be more Democratic. Midwestern states are swing states or battleground states where it depends on the year and who the president is and what we're voting for, whether the Midwestern states are more Republican or Democratic. Then we have psychological factors. And we're going to go through a couple terms that we have here, which is, one of them is party identification. Voter party loyalty is an important predictor in how someone votes. Issues. Major issues can override all others. For instance, abortion, guns, LGBTQIA, etc. issues, immigration, or borders. If you have a really strong opinion about one of those things, you might be able to compromise on your opinions about the other things in order to vote for the person who you feel will support your opinion on the thing that you think is most important. Then there's something called a split ticket, which involves voting for people from different parties. A straight ticket, which is only voting for one party, and then personality, the beer test, people matter. And so what that means is like some people vote for someone who they feel like they would be able to get along with the best in real life, instead of the person they think might have the best political argument. So they vote for the most relatable person. Okay. Then I believe that is all of lesson 2. So I hope you're finding this informative. Please come back for more.